Emotional update. Kelly Ripa in tears over Mark Consuelos' heartbreaking struggle. Mark Consuelos and Kelly Ripa had long been the very definition of love, resilience, and family unity. But now, a heartbreaking truth had surfaced. Millions adored Mark Consuelos, not just as an actor, but as a devoted husband and father. Yet behind his warm smile, he had been privately battling cancer, a revelation that left his family shaken to the core. Kelly Ripa, America's beloved morning show host, could not contain her emotions when the truth became public. She broke down on air, overcome by the weight of it all. What chain of events led to this devastating discovery? How did Kelly find the courage to keep standing tall? And what does this mean for one of the country's most cherished couples? This story holds heartbreak, faith, and the kind of love that endures even through life's darkest storms. The whispers didn't come from tabloids. They started inside Mark and Kelly's own home. Subtle changes in Mark's health began to show. Endless fatigue, a persistent cough that refused to fade. They seemed minor, but Kelly couldn't ignore them. Mark brushed them off at first. He had always been the strong one, full of energy, the heart of their family. But Kelly's intuition told her something deeper was wrong. Behind the scenes, fans still saw the same charming, lively Mark Consuelos on their screens. Yet, privately, an invisible storm was brewing, one that would soon break open their lives. The doctor's visit changed everything. When the diagnosis finally came, their world stopped. Mark had cancer. Kelly was stunned. It didn't feel real. The man who had been her constant for decades was now in a fight for his life. The word cancer carried a gravity that shook her soul. Anyone who's been through it understands. It's not just a diagnosis, it's an earthquake that shatters everything familiar. Kelly later shared that in that moment, she could barely breathe. Looking at Mark, she saw not just her husband, but the father of their children and the love of her life, someone she wasn't ready to lose. When she broke down, Mark reached for her hand and whispered, "We'll get through this together." Kelly's job is to bring joy to millions every morning. But just days after the diagnosis, she couldn't keep her composure. On live television, her voice trembled and tears welled in her eyes. For the first time in memory, the usually unshakable host faltered. She gently told her audience that her family was going through something incredibly difficult. Though she didn't reveal the details, her emotions said it all. Viewers saw not just a celebrity, they saw a wife terrified of losing the man she loved. Her tears touched countless hearts across the nation, reminding everyone that fear and love are feelings that unite us all. But that public breakdown was only the beginning of a long, sleepless journey filled with uncertainty. Their children, Michael, Lola, and Joaquin, were devastated. How does one prepare for the possibility of losing their father, the man who cheered from the stands, told bad jokes at dinner, and held the family together? Kelly and Mark agreed to be honest. They gathered their children and told them the truth. There were tears, but there was also unity. They promised to face it as one. Behind closed doors, Kelly became the family's pillar. She cried alone so her children wouldn't see her fear. Any mother watching could understand. The hardest thing in the world is pretending to be strong when your heart is breaking. Then came the night everything nearly fell apart. Mark's conditions suddenly worsened, and he was rushed to the ICU. Kelly described that night as chaos. Bright hospital lights, hurried footsteps, and doctors speaking in urgent tones. Sitting in that sterile chair, she prayed like never before. The fear that she might lose him was unbearable. Hours passed like eternity. Then, as dawn broke, a sliver of hope arrived. The medical team delivered cautious, good news. Mark had made it through the night. He wasn't out of danger yet, but he had survived. Kelly took his hand and whispered, "I'm not letting you go." She reminded him of their children, their love, their life together. It wasn't a miracle cure, but it was the light they desperately needed. Leaving the ICU wasn't a celebration. It was the start of a new battle. Home became both sanctuary and hospital. The counters filled with medication bottles, and their days revolved around treatments and Mark's fluctuating strength. Chemotherapy became their new normal, a word that had once felt distant and terrifying. The strong, vibrant man Kelly knew began to fade physically, but his spirit refused to give in. Even in exhaustion, there were flashes of his old humor, his determination to walk in the garden, his quiet squeeze of her hand reminding her he was still there. Kelly lived a double life. Before sunrise, she left home for the studio, leaving Mark in the care of a nurse or one of their children. Under the bright lights, she became Kelly Ripa again, smiling, joking, hosting. Her professionalism never wavered, but her eyes carried a deeper strength born from private pain. She would occasionally hint at family challenges, thanking viewers for their support, without ever revealing the full story. Her vulnerability made her even more relatable. After filming, she would rush home, her mind and heart tethered to Mark. Her children, too, had grown through the struggle. Michael took charge of logistics and schedules, showing quiet strength. Lola became her father's confidant, sitting with him for hours and talking about everything under the sun. Young Joaquin, with his jokes and innocence, brought light into even the darkest days. One evening, they all gathered in the living room. A movie played softly. Mark dozed in his chair, a blanket over him. Kelly looked around at her children, each one beside her, forming a circle of love and silence. There were no cameras, no fear, no titles, just family. In that moment, she understood something profound. No illness, no fame, no circumstance could take away their unity. They would not let this illness define them. Their strength, born from love, would hold them together through anything that came next.